Today we are excited to be joined by Camille Socquet-Clerc after she sat on our panel for our sustainable investing event last month. Camille is the founder of Bloom Impact Investing, which was created so you can invest while making a positive climate impact. She's dedicated to transforming the financial system and empowering every Australian to use their investment power to create a better climate future. Welcome, Camille.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
So excited to have you back and to see you again after you were at our sustainable investing event last month. We start every podcast with the same few questions as a way of getting to know you. So Camille, what's the best thing that has happened to you in the last week?
I had a wonderful week actually, so I have two things. Is that okay?
Yeah, he's allowed.
So first of all, we have reviewed an investment I'm super excited about, which is a water and wetland protection fund.
Nice.
And so just having such impactful assets in the pipeline for our fund really makes my day. And the other thing is we've been shortlisted for the Innovation Awards with the University of Queensland. So yeah, that put me in a good mood.
That is very exciting. Love winning an award. And Camille, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
So lately I've been devastated, like so many other women, by the sad news coming from the US about abortion rights. So I would say I would have dinner with Simone de Beauvoir, who was a French philosopher, writer and feminist activist. And I would ask her, what should we do now?
Please. And if you could be a stock or company, who would you be and why?
Okay, cool. I'm
really excited to hear about what you say for this one.
Okay, if I had to be a stock, I would be Mercury. So Mercury is a clean energy company in New Zealand, and they do lots of things. So ocean power, small hydropower, geothermal, onshore wind turbines. And why? It's because I love to do a ton of different things and I'm bad at compromising. So I think it's a good example of a company that does a lot of things. And for a company, I would love to be Future Super. So Future Super is a fossil fuel free and I guess positive ethical retirement fund, and I just love brands and companies that take a stance in the world and aren't afraid to stand up and pick a fight, and they've done a phenomenal job at picking up fights with the fossil fuel industry.
Just getting a little bit aggressive there with the fossil fuel industry. Love it.
just straight away.
Both of those companies that you've just spoken about kind of reflect, I guess, what you do day to day, which is Bloom Investing. So I was wondering if you could give us a bit of a rundown on what the company is that you're creating.
Yeah, of course. So Bloom is an investing app and platform with a climate impact mission. And the reason we exist is to help people invest in climate solutions. Now, if we take a step back, the problem we are solving is that unfortunately today, a lot of people are overwhelmed by climate change, right? And although we all do our best, and I'm sure you girls do, those things like recycling, changing our diets.
I feel a bus coming.
I think we are missing the big picture. No, those things are really important, but we are missing the big picture. The single most important action an individual can take when it comes to fighting climate change is how they use their money. So how they bank, how they manage their super, and how they invest. But sadly today, investing in cleantech and climate impact, so things like solar farms, recycling facilities, or green bonds, is super complex and restricted to either wealthy individuals or institutional investors. And I'm here to change that, and Bloom is here to democratize climate impact investing. So we've created our own managed fund so that in 5 minutes, starting with just $500 with a mobile phone, anyone can invest in a diversified climate impact portfolio. And so I guess you might think, there are a lot of other apps out there. What's different with Bloom? We're not here to compete with other apps. I mean, there are a lot of wonderful platforms that help people get started with investing. Like, I'm not going to name all of them, but Sharesy, Superhero, and so forth. Bloom is here to be a super simple, impactful way to invest in climate solutions. And we want to open up access to alternative climate investments. So think infrastructure, bonds, fixed interests, and these things were not previously available to individuals.
I remember at the live event, we had a slide that kind of showed the CO2 emissions that you can help save by like the actions that you take. And down the very bottom was like, kind of use that keep cup, which you said, it's still really important to do. But then the last bit, which had the most impact, was investing. I think it was something along the lines of 30 grand over a period of time into clean investments. And I think that visualization really showed me it's like if you invest in these kind of things, that's where your impact can really be. So if you're doing your recycling, if you're doing your clean cup or green cup or whatever you call it, then really you should be thinking about investing your money, because if you want to have impact, that's where it lies.
You can scale. Yeah, it's a matter of like scaling your impact. And you're right. So a recent study has found that shifting $32,000. So, if you are around your 30s, that you maybe have around 30 grand in your super, a bit less, towards green finance can save 5.8 tons of CO2 per year. And just to give you a comparison with that, living car-free is 2.4 tons, and eating a plant-based diet is 0.8 tons.
Yeah, wow.
Just to give, and think about how much effort it takes to shift to a plant-based diet or living car-free compared to, investing or just shifting your super.
Yeah. I think sustainable investing is something that I know I personally have tried to invest a lot more time into educating myself about and sort of trying to move my portfolio in that direction. I guess one of the hardest things is, we talk about this term greenwashing, which basically means that a lot of companies are putting out media and putting out words that make it sound like it's a lot more sustainable than it is. I'm really interested to hear, how does Bloom sort of go about deciding what to invest in, navigating that whole world of greenwashing, and then how can we as retail investors sort of translate that across and really apply it to our own investing?
That's a great question, and I agree with you. There is a ton of greenwashing out there, not necessarily because people are malicious. It's because being ethical means so many different things to many different people. But that's about to change, because ASIC recently came out with new guidelines to avoid to help financial institutions avoid greenwashing. But Bloom, so how do we do this? We have developed our own climate impact investing framework that goes a step further than ESG investing or negative screening. So negative screening is just removing the problematic industries from your portfolio. So think tobacco, pornography, etc. If you remove these things, doesn't mean that you're necessarily making a positive impact. So at Bloom, we only invest in assets that are aligned with our climate science framework. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we've used two climate science transition models, one global called Project Drawdown and one domestic, or rather Australian, called Climate Works. And these models tell us exactly what we need to invest in to reach net zero. And Project Drawdown has a list of 93 climate solutions. So we've taken this list and we've mapped it to all the listed and unlisted companies and assets that at their core had these activities. And what's super exciting about this is that each and every solutions has the potential to remove gigatons of CO2 in the atmosphere. And then the second step from that is doing a robust financial analysis. So there's a misconception then that if you do impact investing or ethical investing, you have to, compromise on returns. Well, we don't think this way. We apply the same rigor as other investment managers, and we do a financial analysis on each asset. And I think as a retail investor, if you want to apply a version of this, you can first decide on a cause you care about. If it's climate change, I think Project Drawdown is a great place to start, but it could be, social cause, and then if you care about this issue genuinely, then find, the science, or find the truth of this cause, I guess, of what is really making an impact, and then align your investments with it. And when I say align, I can give you a tip. So with Bloom, we look at the revenue from a company or the research and development budgets. So this essentially is a simple question. Is this company or stock at its core doing this climate solution or its social thing? And if it's a yes, then it should be in your portfolio. If it's a no, you can move on to the next.
I like that tip of kind of looking at one line item, because honestly, you do this day to day, but sometimes it can be really hard as a retail investor.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, it's so overwhelming. And I like that you say, you look for a cause that you're really passionate about. So that's your tick. And then obviously I was comparing ETFs the other day and I found it quite overwhelming, the amount of kind of information that's out there. But I think if maybe you look at, the top 5 companies in each or the top holdings and maybe just have a look at if they're really suiting your cause, then that's kind of a good way to go around it.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the right way to start. Look at the holdings and just Google the company, have a look. My tip would be every listed company has a reporting, right, for their investors. And they also all have nowadays a sustainability reporting. So you can have a quick glance and see if they are genuine or not through that. Another tip is there's a website called CDP. That means the Carbon Disclosure Protocol. And there's a search bar on this website. You can search the company and it gives a rating on environmental criteria. So you can quickly see a simple rating from A to F, and you can quickly see if they are actually walking the talk.
Love a simple rating, don't we, Mads? Yeah. Anything simple is where we want to go.
We joked at our sustainable investing event about how when Hamish and Andy launched an investigation on the food health star ratings and how they realised how confusing it was. What was it, Soph? It was tiny teddies were 4.5 star and Greek yogurt was 1 star. And we kind of made that comparison that when we look at this space in sustainable investing, it's where's the easy rating system? Where's that little scale that tells me whether something, 5 green leaves or something? I just want to know if something's sustainable. But then I guess it also by the same token makes a lot of sense, because like you said at the start, whether something is sustainable or not is kind of depending on what that means to you and sort of really defining what sustainability means to you. We know that over the last few years there has been a really large amount of funds flowing into sustainable investing. As a result, we've seen quite good returns on these investments. But what do you think it is about sustainable investing that's actually going to mean that good returns, excess returns, continue long into the future?
That's a great question. And I get that. I get asked this all the time. So the question is, if I align my investments with my values, will that lead to worse financial returns, right? First of all, I think when you take a step back and think about what it means to be an ethical company, so you think about the framework ESG, environmental, social, and governance. If you are a company that has great practices around your environmental and social and governance impact in the world, chances are you operate quite efficiently and you are just a good and sound company. So that's the first thing I would love to say. And therefore, it just makes sense that your performance and your returns will be greater than a non-ESG company, because there's always a cost when you don't align your company with ESG credentials. But beyond my own humble opinion, I think it's important to also share that there has been a lot of studies that underpin and prove the outperformance of ESG. So one of my favorite one is a study by the New York Center for Sustainable Business. They found, so it's a mega study, meaning they have gathered hundreds of studies and gathered the results and looked for correlations. And they found that 58% of the 1,000 research papers they analyzed showed a positive relationship between ESG and financial performance. They also found, and that's really interesting for the environment we're in at the moment, which is hyper volatile, that ESG investing is and provide more downside protection, especially during social and economic crises. So that's an important factor. Another thing I would love to share as well, but that's more to do with climate investing in particular. I think in Australia, there has been great performance from the Cleantech sector. And I would encourage the listeners today to have a look at the Deloitte Cleantech Index. So that's an index tracking the performance of the listed cleantech companies in Australia. By cleantech, sorry, that's a bit jargony. Cleantech means clean energy or clean technology, so technologies that help with the environment. This index has seen a 71.5% growth over the last 5 years, compared to just 36% growth for the ASX 200. So it's really been outperforming for a long time. And the most recent one is, I've just seen actually this week a study from Bloomberg looking at how ESG funds were performing today, like recently in the crisis we're in, and they found that for Europe-focused, US-focused, and global-focused ESG equity funds, they have done better this year on average than their non-ESG counterparts.
Well, it's kind of like, I think what I find interesting in a time like this is that there obviously are so many social, political, environmental issues going on. And I think we spoke about it a bit last week on last week's episode. But if you do have that kind of ESG focus, which does include the social and the governance, it does affect your company because it will depend on the type of staff you can retain, how the company's kind of going to perform. So it's kind of looking at it as a holistic thing rather than just, I think sometimes we get bogged down in what's this company doing for the environment rather than, the whole social and governance point as well.
Absolutely.
So Camille, I'm really trying to look for stocks at the moment, look for companies that I can do my research and add some more sort of sustainable companies to my portfolio. So we did want to get stock specific with you today and maybe get a little bit of inspiration about where we could be looking. So what is the first company that you wanted to talk to us about today?
Sure. So look, the first thing I'm going to say is climate solutions can be really diversified. There are a lot of companies across many geographies and across many industries. So don't think just solar stocks and wind stocks. So today, I guess I can share some ideas on two themes I guess super passionate about. So the first one is electrification of transport. So for our transport system to transition to a more electric and less polluting system, we need lithium and critical minerals. And there are a lot of different lithium companies, but there's one in particular that I think is particularly ethical. It's called Vulcan Energy.
I was really hoping you'd say the one that I was invested in. Not Vulcan, damn it.
I mean, there are a lot of them that are great, but I really love Vulcan Energy because they have created a zero carbon lithium project in Europe, and they aim to be the first net zero lithium producer worldwide. They do this by using by using geothermal energy, which makes all their process completely reliant on renewables. And they are starting a project in Germany to extract lithium and ship it to Europe. And I think this will position them incredibly well for the future. So really love this company. I know the CEO, and it's a wonderful company.
Can I ask, is that really expensive to do that, to create lithium in a sustainable way? Like, does it come with risks?
Look, I'm not a lithium expert or a scientist, but actually using geothermal energy is quite an efficient way to transform lithium and store it. So yeah, I think it's actually quite smart to have their geothermal plant onto the production site.
It's interesting because Soph and I did an episode recently where we talked about different energy sources, and lithium was one of them. And I actually don't think I'd quite realised that most of the time when lithium is extracted, it's not done in a renewable way. So it's like you think that it's this great energy and it's sustainable, but actually the way that they're extracting it from the ground is still not sustainable in most instances.
Absolutely. And this is why I love Vulcan so much. Yeah, absolutely. The other company I love is in the waste and recycling space. This is, unfortunately, waste is increasing every day. And we always think of waste as, our municipal waste, the bin we put out the door every week or so. But a big area in recycling is actually industrial waste. And there's a company I love, an Australian one called Sims Limited. It was actually founded in 1917. So they've been around for 100 plus years. And they provide services in recycling and circular solutions for technology. And they are now expanding to municipal recycling and renewable energy. But they recycle metals, municipal waste, and so far, get that, they have recycled 660,000 tons of municipal curbside material.
What is municipal? Am I the only one that doesn't know this?
Residential, I think.
Yeah, residential. That's right. That's the bin that's the bin you put out every week. Yeah, that's right.
New word today. Thank you.
They've also recycled 2.1 million cloud infrastructure units and 8.6 tons of secondary metals. So these are metals from construction sites and so forth, and So when you think of such a company, they deal with heavy materials. It's really hard to reduce your emissions in that industry, but they have super aggressive environmental targets, and they are projected to be carbon neutral by 2030. And they are already committed to using 100% renewable electricity by 2025. So I love them, a huge company. They have a 2.7 market cap. So it's a big company with solid grounds, which I think is also important in that environment.
Have they always had a renewable focus, or is it one of the big companies that's really looking just to transition into this space?
No, that's new. That's new. They are traditionally focusing on metal recycling and life cycle services, so helping other companies be more circular, and that focus on renewable energy is new.
We love a transition story.
Yeah, we do. And I was going to say I'm really happy about this company because I have this ongoing fear that we're just going to be eaten up by rubbish one day because, well, when you think about the world, we produce so much, we overproduce, we overconsume. There's just so much waste. You see videos from overseas, and it's like these, you just see all these waste dumps, and I just get so worried. It's like, are we just going to overconsume so much that we
get eaten by rubbish?
I'm like thinking Cookie Monster vibes right now. Like
That's what I'm visualizing.
Sitting in the rubbish can. Oh gosh.
We're joking, but it's true. It's actually what's happening, unfortunately. If you love waste, I think it's a wonderful space to, waste as in like an industry you want to support.
Space, yeah.
Cleanaway Management is also an interesting company in Australia. They look at waste management solutions. They also look at chemical and hazardous waste disposal, liquid waste disposal. So also a great company to look at.
Some great companies there, and I am really interested to know, can you point us to any resources or anywhere that you like to sort of get your inspiration when looking for new companies to invest in?
Okay, I have one tip. You can jump onto the Deloitte Cleantech Index. This will give you a really good view of companies to invest in to cover the clean energy and clean tech space in Australia. Now, if you are looking global, jump on the Bloom website and look at our holdings. It should give you a good idea because we cover over 50 different climate solutions. So if you really want to go deeper than your usual wind, solar stocks, we have great resources, and we are actually about to release a complete guide to clean tech investing with all the stocks we've been looking at for over a year. So this will have a ton of ideas, all classified per type of impact. So, wind, industry, transport. So, yeah.
Love it. I was about to say, if you didn't plug it yourself, that after our sustainable investing event, I went home and you mentioned that you had the holdings that you invest in with Bloom Impact on your website. And I was just scanning through all of them and picking random companies and having a look into it. So that is another great strategy for getting a little bit of inspiration.
We need
Thank you.
people like you doing all the hard work for people like us.
Exactly. Well, that's my mission. Who has time to, look into all the sustainability report and do the financial analysis? This is our mission, making things easy.
Camille, we always finish in the same way by asking from our expert, what kind of advice would you give someone who is starting out investing in the sustainability space?
Look, when I look at my younger self, I wish I started earlier and I wish I invested more. I started when I was 25. So don't be afraid, start small, build your confidence. Diversify, which is always the key word. And in this specific environment, this is not financial advice, but I think beginner investors can be too focused on the ups and downs. You have to zoom out. So don't move your money out when things go down. If you have a diversified and sound strategy, just sit tight and relax. Don't look at the ups and downs. Think long term is really my advice.
Yeah, some fantastic insights, and highly recommend everyone following Bloom Impact on Instagram. They do some great posts. Go and check out their website as well. Is there anything else you want to plug? The book that's coming?
The ebook, just download the Bloom app. There is a free version that lets you have a look at the fund and what we invest in and why. And when you feel ready, you can start with just $500. So, yeah.
I love that. I feel like downloading apps these days is like my pride and joy, and like going in and just having a little sticky beak. I know that sounds so bad.
We're getting some real insights to your brain today.
But I just love it, like usability of apps these days, and I've downloaded the Bloom app, so I would recommend. Camille, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got so much insight, and I'm actually ready to go away and start Googling again after doing it last weekend.
Thanks for joining us, Camille.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.